Welcome, everybody. Today I'm going to talk about a mid-century modern dresser that I bought. Here is the before photos. This was actually owned by one family. There were some weird stains on it. There were some chips, scratches. So I found this on Facebook Marketplace, and in my area of the Pacific Northwest, there's not a lot that I've ever found that are not already fixed up. So they're usually about $400 to buy them in perfect condition. So when I saw this, I reached out to the woman who was selling it, and I met her at a storage facility. And I always think to myself, yeah, going by myself to some place that nobody really knows where I am is the start of a murder mystery. But I tell my parents where I'm going, and I can always look on Facebook Marketplace to see if the person's a real person, and she had lots of friends, and so I met her there. She actually works at the storage facility, and this was her father's. So she was telling me about the story of her dad. Now you can see here, I just smelled that because I didn't know what it was. I thought it could have been some kind of shoe cream or something like that, but I couldn't figure out what it was. It was a little bit waxy. So I got my scraper and I took as much of this as I could off. So as you saw in the beginning, I did clean this off, and it was pretty dirty. After it belonged to her father, then she gave her son permission to use it, and she said that although he was pretty tough on furniture, it was actually still in pretty good condition, just wear and tear. So I was wondering, how old is this item? And it does fit in the mid-century modern look. And those were roughly around 1933 to 1965 is what some people say. But then some people say the specific period is 1947 to 1957. And that's according to archivecurb.com. So I love this look, and so I thought, you know what, I'm going to keep it for myself. My husband has a dresser that we shared together, and I thought, yeah, I want my own. So I took it, and I am now using it currently in our bedroom. You can see how dirty the water here is, and that is just cleaning it up after all those years. So I bought it for $75. And I love when furniture has stories. The woman who I bought this from said that she was adopted at birth, and her adoptive parents actually got divorced when she was maybe about 1 or 2 years old. I can't specifically remember. Here I'm showing the bottom of the cabinet and looking at the dirt, and I thought the legs were really interesting. So once her parents got divorced, her mother actually applied to be the first female sheriff or working for the sheriff's department. And the guy who was applying said to his friends, this is the story she told me, that he wanted to marry this lady. So he seemed like a really fun guy, and he knew what he wanted, and when he saw the lady who had 2 little kids and wanted to marry her and take care of the kids, that's what he did. And so the woman who was selling this said that he was the best father she could have ever hoped for. And then later on in years, she did a DNA test, and it turns out that back in the day, he actually was affiliated with her family. So in the past, their families did connect. Now here you can see I'm trying to put on my gloves. And the reason for that is I'm going to use wood filler. And it says on the wood filler directions to make sure you use gloves. Well, as I've mentioned before in these videos, I've got really little hands that are very fat. So I always try to put them on, and inevitably about an inch or two, or a half an inch, I should say, of the glove is at the very end, and so it's very hard to do small little things with my hands. So you'll see I take them off a little bit later on, and that's naughty, but I had to do it. So you can see also by my left hand, there's a little white area, and that's where some of the wood has been chipped off. After I put it there, just like the direction says, it did nicely get solid. I sanded it and then I stained it. Now the stain did come off a little bit darker than I wanted, but as I mentioned, I'm going to keep this, so I don't really care. I was watching an episode of Transcend Furniture Gallery, and she's a pro at the mid-century modern furniture. And she said that you can't just use Restore-A-Finish to get the quality back to new, so you really do have to sand it. Well, I sand this very lightly, and there are still some little marks you'll see when it's when it's done, but I didn't care because it was for me. Anyway, so when you see this, keep in mind I'm keeping this. So her father, the lady whose furniture this was, he loved also to collect rocks. So their whole life, she said, he was a really great dad. She was so impressed that he took these kids that were already from somebody else and they were adopted. And she said he was a funny guy and he had a little bit of dyslexia. So sometimes people didn't really quite get his jokes, but I don't know what that means because people with dyslexia can tell jokes. But maybe she was trying to say that he just wasn't the stereotypical normal guy. So some people thought he was a little bit odd, but she thought he was the bee's knees. So he and she took care of her mother for 4 years because the mother was doing very poorly. And then suddenly he died. And when she was telling me this, of course, it's very emotional when people that you love die. And she said, well, after that, she had to move all of his furniture into the storage area so there could be room for her to stay with her mother to help take care of her now that the dad was dead. So as she was moving all of his stuff, she moved a bag of rocks. And he loves to collect rocks, or he loved to collect rocks. And when she put the bag down, the bag opened, and one little rock rolled towards her feet. And it was a little red rock that looked like a heart. Oh, when she was telling me this, it's just gave me shivers. Anyway, so I love furniture with stories. And so whenever I look at this piece of furniture, I'll remember that, there are really wonderful parents out there who really care about children and will, help to take care of them. So think about yourself as a parent. Do you try to make your life the best for your kids? If you have no biological children and you have stepkids or families, kids around you, do you try to give them time and effort? Do you try to be kind to them? Do you try to make them feel special? One of the biggest problems in the world today is children who are neglected and don't know what to do in the world, and they get into trouble and, make bad choices. Not all of them, of course, but just think about children and what can you do to make people's lives better. So in this part of the video, I've already washed the furniture. I've dried it all out. And now I am sanding the inside and the outside of the drawers. And then I also sanded the outside, the 3 sides of it, the top and both sides, and then a little bit of the inside. The slides themselves were in pretty good condition, except for about the 3rd one. It looked like it was kind of splitting. So I kind of sanded that down a little bit and put some Howard's Feed, and I want to say Feed and Seed. It's not what it's called. Feed, wax, whatever. So I used some of that too. So you can see at the very front of this cabinet, even though I'm sanding it a little bit here, the original cover of it, like the lacquer or the whatever's on there, should probably be taken off all the way. However, I didn't want to destroy it if I went too deep down for sanding, so I did it as gently as I could. Now here I am putting on, it's called 4/0, which is basically 0000 steel wool, and I'm putting on the Restore-A-Finish. And in our family house, we have a lot of dark furniture, wood and furniture. So I do go around and I put Restore-A-Finish if there's any little nicks and things, and it really does a good job. If I were to sell this In the future, I would resand it to make it look perfect, because if I want to get about $400 or $500, people want it to look relatively new. Now, I did record sanding and putting this on all 5 drawers, and then I said to myself, really? Do people want to watch all of these get sanded? No. Now, you also might notice that one of the pulls of the very top drawer was not taken off. And the reason for that is because there's a little plastic place where you can put change or jewelry or something like that, and it was blocking the screw, and I didn't want to ruin that part, so I let it alone, and I just cleaned around it. So here I'm putting the Howard's wax on it, and a very nice orange smell. It is a lot easier to use than the Minwax. The Minwax, I put 3 layers on, and I could never make it look smooth, and I even buffed it out with an electric buffer. So you can see here easily all the little mistakes, and not mistakes, just the usage of the furniture, right? It's not brand new. I like it, and really, I'm sitting in the bedroom where it is right now, and it just looks gorgeous. So you'll see at the very end how it looks and how it looks in the bedroom where I'm doing my recording right now. I am using the plastic gloves right now, or the latex or vinyl, whatever they are, because it is waxy, and so it kind of makes my hands weird feeling. When I do this, it's kind of a Zen moment. I don't really think about anything. I normally listen to podcasts, and the podcasts I like are people who have problems, and the person who I listen to tries to solve them. And I've been listening to this podcast, radio show, since 1987. So this person's been around a long time, and really helps me try to remember to do the right thing, and think about positive things and try to be a nicer person than I would be if I don't think about consequences of my snarky behavior. And that's why also I'm doing this channel. Here you can see I filled in where that dark space is with the putty. And I first of all stained it with a light stain. I have a pencil or a marker that stains wood, and it was kind of weird orangey color. And then I used the darker one, which I like the most. And then it was a little too dark. But as I always tell everybody, only God is perfect. And when I was traveling, my friend who's a girl, was living in Syria, and she said, come visit me. And this was back around 2000 and 2000, maybe 2000. And I was there for 2 weeks, and I went to go buy a carpet, and the guy who was selling the carpets, he said, no carpet is perfect, only Allah, or only God is perfect. And I loved that saying, because sometimes people try to be perfect, and no one is perfect. Try your best and be happy with your best. I am not a seasoned, feed and wax. I am not a, seasoned furniture flipper. I've been doing this now for about 3 weeks. And as I mentioned also before, I did fix things around my house, but I'm not a perfectionist at all. I like things done and done well enough. If I was an electrician or a plumber, that probably wouldn't work very well, because just good enough isn't good when you're going to, hurt people, or if you're a doctor or something like that. But if you're just fixing up old furniture, cleaning it up, waxing it, and then either keeping it for yourself or selling it, do your best and be happy when the product is finished. People can always look for the faults, but how about if you change your opinions and your thought process and look for what's good about it, right? So I can see the little marks, but I can also see the love of the piece. I can remember the story of the father who took care of the little kids. And that's the kind of thing that I hope people remember. You can always dwell on the negative, and that will just make you a negative person. If you think about anything that's good, are you breathing? Can you breathe on your own? Some people can't. Can you walk? Some people can't. And Yeah, that's why I'm doing this channel. Because when I was feeling my sickest and most alone, I watched YouTube videos and they made me happy and they made me not feel alone. So anyway, I shouldn't get so emotional, but I really loved YouTube. And so I hope that you like it too. Anyway, the channel is almost finished. You'll see it all together. And if you look carefully, you will see that it's not perfect. Here's the befores, the before picture. And then you'll see the after picture of it in my bedroom. And all I remember is the good stuff. So thank you so much. I hope you subscribe and have a wonderful day. Don't forget, Projects with Paula. Project. Want to buy me a coffee? No problem. Bye-bye.